there were undoubtedly many nice slaveholders in the South. This is not meant facetiously.
What?
Again, it's meant literally.
It's Dennis Prager trying to make a comment about how there were nice slave owners in America. You know, individuals who purchased humans to force them to work for them for free and would beat them, whip them, rape them. Nice slave owners. Now,
Yeah, I mean, is the first degree of hell better than the second degree of hell? Yeah, maybe. There is fire in the first degree of hell, but maybe there is more fire in the second degree of hell. It's still hell. So, yeah, sure, probably some slave owners were a little bit less horrible than the really horrible ones, but that does not justify slavery in any way whatsoever morally. It doesn't matter how much white Americans may feel guilty, rightfully so feel guilty for slavery, because even though Dennis Prager and his followers might not be at all guilty of the horrors of the past, they are still reaping the rewards and the benefits of systemic racism, which is a post-colonial system that ensures that black people are poor everywhere around the world and white people are rich, and this is a legacy of slavery. So, and that builds what we call white guilt. So maybe there were some slave owners that were a little bit better, but slavery is still hellfire. Make no mistake about that, and make no attempt to try to morally justify that.
you know, what a great Christian Dennis Prager is. Why don't we hear more about these so-called nice slave owners?
If you had been invited to one of their homes, you would have been treated beautifully. But they supported a vicious system.
Yep. Agree.
The left is a vicious system. It's not slavery. Although the end result of all leftism is the enslavement of populations, not as in...
I don't agree with what he says about leftism. He overgeneralizes, but yeah, sure. I mean, if I would be a slave, I've never been a slave. My lineage from West Africa has never been enslaved, alhamdulillah. If I could choose a bad slave master, a medium bad slave master, a little bit more of a gentle slave master, I would choose the gentle guy. Everyone would, but that does not morally justify it anyway. And pointing to the left as evil, I mean, yeah, there is evil in left-wingism. There is also evil in right-wingism. So, yeah.
Transatlantic slave trade or chattel slavery, but in the diminution of human rights and liberties, which is a form of enslavement.
You cannot equate transatlantic slavery and genocide of people with left-wing politics. There are problems with woke left, but don't try to morally justify these two. I completely disagree with that.
Fascinating argument. So
Yeah.
first, let's address what he's saying piece by piece here, Cenk. So number one, he makes the argument that, you know, the whole system of slavery, not so nice, but the people who practiced what was required of that system in terms of having slaves, those people themselves, even though they believed in that system, used that system to their advantage, they're not bad people.
Not all of them might be, because sometimes you can be thrown into a system that is against your will. If you would be a white man 300 years ago, slavery would be there. Then you had no choice. Then you could choose to try to be decent about it or horrible about it. And yes, in that sense, there can be good, quote-unquote, slave master, but the system is still evil.
They just, you know, treated human beings as property and were vicious to those human beings. But they weren't bad people. I mean, they might invite you to their home and they'd cook you a nice dinner. They'd be super nice if you were a white American, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I think Anna is very bright, but I don't think that that's what Dennis Prager is saying. I think what he's trying to say is that they were good Nazis. Like everyone in Germany, during Nazi Germany, they were good Germans who were forced into that system. Yes, that's true. I think that you can find sort of good, sort of white people, if you will, during the time of slavery, but the system was evil. I think that that's what Dennis is trying to say. My problem with that is that, yeah, sure, I agree, but it's still, I mean, the first degree of hell is less bad than the second degree of hell, but you are still in hell. The system is still horrible, so don't try to make these kinds of arguments to morally justify slavery. That's my disagreement, but yeah.
Yeah. So let me jump in on that one. So if we're being super generous to Dennis Prager, he's saying, well, slavery was vicious, but even so, some of the people who participated in it were nice people. They would treat you nicely, and so don't be fooled by people being nice. Okay, so that's the most generous interpretation of what Prager is saying, but look at his assumptions. Like, it doesn't even occur to him that anyone in his audience is black. Because if you were black, they would not have treated you nicely. They might have literally taken you out into the back and whipped you or raped you instantly. That would not have been a very nice way to treat you, right? But he thinks, well, I mean, it would have been nice to me. Good enough, right? So that is among the problems here. I'm going to get back to his comments on the left and how it's like slavery later, because I think that's really important. But I wanted to make one more, just one quick correction. Prager is Jewish, by the way. He's not Christian. And you would be surprised by that because he kisses Christian nationalist ass 24/7. Why? Because that's where his bread is buttered. So, and that's where his audience is. That's a good point. So he's like, oh, Christian right is awesome! And oh, just please include me. Please include me. I mean, later when, Armageddon happens and you murder all the...
I mean, Schenk is so good at making these arguments. It's kind of true. He's exaggerating a little bit. It's a show. Come on, man. It's The Young Turks is a show, 5-6 million subscribers. But I see the point he's making. It's kind of true, actually.
Jews. Oh, it's okay as long as you keep sending checks.
I actually didn't know that because of all the ass kissing he does to Christians. That's pretty surprising. But, I can kind of understand why Prager, based on, first of all, the lack of logic, but also it seems like he's sedated. And that makes me understand why he would run away from all the leftists who have challenged him to a debate, myself included, by the way. But nonetheless, let me give you some more of what he had to say. So this is not the first time that Prager has equated benign things to slavery. So, for instance, him mentioning leftism or leftist ideology as something that's as evil and terrible as slavery.
I don't even think that there is any such thing as leftist ideology. Anna and Schenk, please define it to me. Are you talking about socialism? Are you talking about communism? Are you talking about libertarian socialism, social liberalism? What do you mean by leftist ideology? What are you talking about? And socialism, what type of socialism? State-controlled, worker co-ops. What type of anarchism? You be more specific what you mean by leftism. That's just because throwing around these right, left is very dualistic. I disagree with that. I think that you should be a little bit more specific, deeper, try to listen. What do you mean by leftism or left-wingism?
He was previously condemned for claiming unvaccinated Americans are the most hated group of people since slavery in an attack on COVID vaccinations in November of last year. By the way, I would be shocked if Dennis Prager wasn't fully vaccinated. Absolutely shocked. I bet you anything he is. And remember, this is the guy who just last week was talking about how the most evil people who need to be controlled are women. Because women, he argues, are overwhelmingly represented in jobs like teaching. And he thinks that teachers... like there's grooming students is prevalent among teachers. Like that's his logic. There's no evidence for that. Absolutely no evidence, no statistics, nothing that he can point to prove that. But his whole mission in life is to go around defaming all sorts of innocent people because he's terrified of women for some reason, probably because women are terrified of him. And he just
Yeah,
provides
I
no
actually think that you are terrified of him. I think you're strawmanning. I think Anna is strawmanning. I don't think a social conservative hates women or tries to remove women's rights. I think that you might be afraid that your liberties as a woman will be removed if people like Dennis Prager gets power, but I think that's fear from Anna's side. I just think he's traditionalist. So I could be wrong about that, but I don't really think that social conservatives want to take away women's rights, but are more family value oriented, and I think that leftist women should not see that with a lot of fear that they're gonna go back to the old days when women didn't have the right to vote. I don't see it like that, but all right.
evidence for anything he says. He says the most vicious things about people he happens to disagree with politically.
But so do you. Come on, guys. In The Young Turk, you say very vicious things about people you don't agree with, like Tulsi Gabbard. You really mock her, and even Tulsi Gabbard's way to speak, and that she pretends to be holy. And you really... Jen called Kanye West an idiot. All right? So don't come to me with this moral high ground that you don't do the same thing to people you disagree with. So... come on, man.
And then he goes so far as to say that slave owners were nice people. But to be fair to him,
I don't think that's what he said, but okay.
Powerful people having the ability to control other people's bodies. I mean, he's fighting for that today by trying to ban abortion, by having the government tell women what they can and can't do with their own bodies. So to be fair to him, I can understand why he would, empathize with slave owners.
I think that you need to be a little bit maybe religious or spiritual to understand some of these maybe pro-life positions. I'm not necessarily taking a position on that, but I think Anna is strawmanning here. I think that she's painting a fear picture of Prager and attacking that fear picture.
Yeah. Last thing, these lunatic right-wingers think that we want to control their lives.
This lunatic. So now you just called him a lunatic. So on the one hand, you criticize Prager that he sort of ridicules people who you disagree with, but you yourself do it. So why is it okay for leftists to call people lunatics and idiots that you leftists disagree with, but the people then that you define on the right wing cannot do the same to you? So come on, guys, let's treat others like we want to be treated, huh?
We want to stay as far away from your life as humanly possible, okay? We actually believe in freedom, unlike you. So, but they project their oppression and their insanity onto us. Oh, the left wing wants to imprison. I don't care about you. Just leave me alone. Leave me alone, you dumbass, okay? But every one of their audience thinks, oh, well, we want to oppress the left wing and control their lives completely, tell them when they can and can't have kids and who they can and can't.
I don't agree. I'm going to stop here. I don't agree with Prager's statement on the left wing that somehow leftist people want to imprison people. I think that's fear the Soviet Union, Mao Zedong, China, North Korea. I think that's a strawman argument from the right wing side, that everything leftist is supposed to be Stalin. I don't agree. Many leftist people just might be very worried about income inequality, poverty in poor neighborhoods, racism, social justice type of issues, and those are very valid, very real, and very fair political issues to be worried about. However, I also, on the same note, do not think that every social conservative who might be pro-life or concerned with family values want to remove other people's freedom. So I really would wish that people who are very polarized in right-wing and left-wing would listen to one another and treat one another like human beings. I think that's the takeaway from this video. Hopefully this was interesting.